Good morning, everyone. So, those of you are listening from US, it's good morning, and I know many of you will be from Sri Lanka, so um, it'll be night over there. And thank you for joining for this stream, and I'm extremely grateful for SCF for inviting me. So, in this talk, I thought I would share a few experiences that I've learned along my way, and thought you might find it useful too. So, a little bit about myself. Right now, I'm in Microsoft working as a senior software engineer. And if you go and look at what we do, we make deep learning and AI run super fast. What does that mean? All right, in today's context, deep learning and AI is growing at a really rapid pace. Everybody wants to use AI for one or the other reasons. But now, then, these machine learning practitioners, they come up with large models to do either language model to do like natural language processing or like do image recognitions, and they need faster training and faster inference. So the current standard or like the current state of the art is to use GPUs to accelerate this training, but there are custom accelerators that have been developed. For example, in Google, they have this Google TPU cloud they developed. So similar to that, we are also going along with custom accelerators to make AI and deep learning super fast. So there are a ton of interesting stuff I would like to dive into in the technical space, but I thought this is not the talk for that. So instead, what I would like to do is tell you a little bit more about myself and then see where we can go with it. So prior to Microsoft, I've been at Berkeley Lab. As a researcher, I was in the performance and algorithms research group. So there also I was working on some deep learning applications, parallelizing deep learning applications as well, and also to see how you can scale large protein sequence alignment. Now this is very different from the domain that I work right now. This is in the bioinformatics domain. But they all have some sort of a computational aspect to it and also some interesting parallelization problem similar to what I'm working right now. And prior to my Berkeley Lab researcher position, I was at Virginia Tech. I was a postdoc there, and I was doing with a group called Network Dynamics and Simulation Science. I need to give a shout out to this group because right now during this coronavirus situation, this is the same group who is now in University of Virginia is doing epidemic modeling. So I'm so glad to be in that group at least for a short period of time. And then I did my Ph.D. at Indiana University. And prior to that, I was a software engineer for a little while at WSO2, and my undergraduate was at University of Marlborough. So to give some perspective, the timeline is about 15 plus years from my University of Marlborough entrance to where we are today. So during this time, I've been a student, a teacher, a developer, a researcher for a long time, and a software engineer. I've been also a boyfriend, a husband, and a dad. So the topic for today is this is what I have learned so far. And if you find it interesting, I think you will use some of the things that I mention in your lives as well. So let's look at it. The lessons learned so far. This is like a roadmap to the presentation. And the first thing I would like to note is you don't have a straight line from wherever you start. It always have loops and circles and pitfalls, things that you have to climb up. So there's never a straight line. And this is not just about life, I mean general, but this is whenever you start a new project, whenever you undertake a new task, this is how it always will be. So, and these are some points I have learned along the way, and hopefully you will find them useful too. So let's jump in. So the first thing is start small. So just like you plant a tree, you start with the seed and then you nourish it and you let the plant grow. So similarly, when you start a new task or when you start a new project, you should start small. This is what I learned. And to give you some example, a few years back, I wanted to learn deep learning. And in my mind, I was thinking, all right, so I want to do deep learning and now I need a new machine and I need some expensive hardware. And I also need the best books or resources I could find on deep learning. But this is what my mind was screaming inside of me. Go ahead and buy this, go ahead and buy these resources. But then there was some experience in me telling me that maybe you should not need all of them to start deep learning. So which is what I did. I didn't end up buying any of these until a few years later. But in the beginning, it boiled down to you only need a Jupyter notebook and a little bit of Googling to learn all about this. When you go along, when you acquire enough skills, then you might need to you might need to invest in some of these. But in the beginning, if you invest all of these in the beginning, then you're not giving any room for you to grow. Here's another example. So our son wanted a saxophone. So you can go on Amazon and search for saxophones, and they come in various sizes. I don't know, shape might be the same, but different prices. So he was happy with this toy saxophone for cheap $13 toy saxophone. Now, the point is, starting small, you are giving yourself room to grow. So it's okay to make mistakes when you start small. But if you make a heavy investment up front, now you are restricted by your investment and you also feel constrained. Because, for example, let's say if we were to buy our son an expensive saxophone, now whenever he plays with it, he might break it, and you're in constant worry, will he break it? Will he have to buy another one, spend more money? And also from his side, now that burden comes to him, he is not free to learn it as he wants. But now with a simple one, it might not sound perfect, but it will help him to gain his skills. And when things go along, we can upgrade it to a better one. So it's the same. These two examples are just a few things I can mention, but in any of the situations, starting small is the first thing that I would recommend to anybody. Even if it's a project, even if it's a research paper, if it's a new software project you want to undertake or new skill you want to learn, start small. And I would like to share this thought with you. So this is a famous quote from Tony Hawk and Donald North. Premature optimization is the root of all evil. So if you optimize at the very beginning, then you're bound to fail. Start small. The second point I want to mention is never complain. So I want to share a story from my freshman year in college. This was in 2004, and we were just entering the university, and I think it might have been the second or third class. So we were in a lecture room. It was if I remember right, it was a little bit dark, bit old, and there were about 100 some students in the same room. And then the lecturer came and he asked from all of us, what do you think we could improve in this lecture room? Just write your thoughts and send a piece of paper. So everybody was hurrying to get their thoughts in, okay, we need new lights, we need new speakers, maybe we need a better place, things like that. And I also wrote we need new lights and stuff like that, I remember. But then there was this one student who wrote something that none of us thought. He wrote that we are so fortunate to have what we have right now. There are others who don't have any of these. So just use this and move forward. This is not exactly what he wrote, but this is the thing that this is essentially the thing he wanted to convey. And I was dumbfounded by that. I was like, that's a really nice way to think about things. You already have so many things that you don't understand or don't appreciate. So instead of complaining, see if you can fix and move forward. And I would like to share 2 stories as well. So this is some examples. So Gordon Miller is an investor. If you search for him in Quora or LinkedIn, you will find that he has millions of subscribers or like followers. And he gives good advice. And also there was this story where he said he would not do a deal with somebody if that person goes to a restaurant and he starts complaining about the AC or complain about the wait time or complain about the service, because to him those indicates that those negative aspects will come along into the business as well. So when you start complaining, it might satisfy you when you complain, but it doesn't fix anything. And I also have another good example to say. Right before when we were going to start this live stream, my machine wanted to make a restart and do a Windows update. And I had no choice but to accept and say restart. I could have stayed complaining, but it wouldn't have fixed it. So I hurried and restarted the machine, and luckily it came back within 5 minutes. So never complain. Appreciate what you have and move forward. Third point, endurance is the key. So I was a PhD student, and this was, I think, my 5th or close to my 6th year. And in my head, this is the question I've been asking every day: when can I graduate? When can I graduate? And my advisor, what he told me was that a PhD is a long climb. You should not focus at the tip, but you should more focus on the road that you're climbing. And when you climb that road, things will start falling into place and you will see success. So that was his answer to my question every time when I was asking, like, what should I do next? It may be the answer that every PhD advisor would give to their student so that they will stay longer, but I think there's value in that. It's a journey. It's not a goal post that you're trying to achieve. So you should focus on the journey more. And there's another thing I want to share here. So if you look at someone like an Olympic weightlifter, they can lift 200 plus kilos easily. But how many seconds will they keep that weight up in the air? It will be at most few seconds, and then they drop that 200 kilos on the ground. But the tasks you get in life, they don't come like that. They are more like holding a glass of water. It's easy to hold a glass of water, but if you want to hold it for a long time, like hours long, then that's where endurance comes into play. More than strength, you need endurance. So some motivational stories, most of you may already know this. So this Alex Honnold is a rock climber, and he climbed one of the largest rock formations in Yosemite National Park, and he did it without any support, like any life support. And if you look at his story, there's a movie out of it now called Free Solo. There he mentioned that he prepared for the event for 7 years. He was going back and forth. He was having doubts of himself, but he was preparing for 7 years. So that's endurance. And then there's this famous story from Sri Lanka, where I come from. In 1967, Karnananda was an Olympic runner, marathon runner, and he was the last in the marathon that was in Japan. But even when he knew he was the last, he kept running. He kept running until he finished the course. And this, if you look at the video link that I have put in, that's from NHK Japan. And one of the person who was there says that gave everybody such an encouragement to see someone who runs even after when they know that they are the last. So he stayed the course and he endured what he had to, and now everybody knows about him from that event more than the person who won that event. And if you need more examples, just look back at your parents and you will find endurance is the key. Good things take time. This is the takeaway from this slide. So just keep going. So about friends. Friends help and help friends. So this is something really important I want to convey. So a little bit of backstory. From those of you who are joining from Sri Lanka and who have gone education in Sri Lanka, you know that advanced level exam is one of the brutal exams, and jumping that high bar is the only way that you can get into a public university, and that's a really brutal challenge out there. Very different from what you would find here in the US education system. So my success over there, I would attribute at least 50% of that to my friends. So it's one thing you have talent, it's one thing you need skills, but having friends who share the same vision or like same spirit will carry you so much more than what you could do alone. So think of it as like swimming in a river, and all of a sudden now you are caught up with some in a stream and you're automatically being pushed forward. So having good friends pretty much does that to you. So this example is about success in your education path. But there's another story I want to share. In 2014, something happened that changed the way you look at your friends for me. So I was in hospital for more than a week, and pretty much I saw the light at the other end as well. I was in the ICU, and it was a terrible situation because the doctors couldn't diagnose what it was for a week. So I was without any medication without a week, and then it turned out to be a really bad infection, and luckily I survived. But at the time we had a newborn at home, and my wife was doing everything alone. And then we had friends. So we had friends who were pretty much like family at the time, and they helped with everything. They helped with our newborn. They helped my wife, and they helped with things at hospital. So this changed my perspective of how I look at friends. So prior to that, you have friends and you would think them as buddies you party with, or like buddies. They are there when things are good. But when you have good friends, they are there for times when you really need them as well. So have good friends and also help your friends. If I could find one good meme from the internet, it is this. It took me a while to figure out this, but if you read it a couple of times, you will get the picture. So it's hard to change perspective of other people, but it's very easy to find people that share the same perspective like you. So you can change the people around you. So find good friends and help your friends. Skills over degrees. I couldn't emphasize this more. When I wanted to apply for PhDs, there was this thing we had to write called a statement of purpose. A statement of purpose, it's another way to say basically, it's a letter that says, why you are interested in doing a PhD, and pretty much why they need to take you in. So you need to convey these two messages in your statement of purpose. And when you write a statement of purpose, you don't necessarily put down your credentials like I did my degree here, this is what I have done. Instead, you write what's your vision, what are the skills you have, what are the skills you bring in, things like that. And from that to any other statement that I have written to all my job interviews, there's a resume or a CV you submit as formality, but people don't go over your degrees. They go over what you have done, they go over what you can bring, they go over to see what your skills are. So there are two stories I want to share. One is from the Ford story, and then this Elon Musk story. I think let's jump into the second one first. So Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla, announced at one point that he's going to have a AI and deep learning hackathon in Twitter. And somebody had asked, like, what are the minimum qualifications? Do I need a degree to get in? So his response was, you don't need a PhD. You only need to have skills on AI and deep learning. And the last sentence, look at the last sentence, he's pretty much saying, I don't care even if you have graduated high school. So there's a person called Hector Continilla. If you search for him, this is the story that I've shared as the Ford story as well. A degree is like buying a new car. It depreciates as soon as you walk out of the dealer. So take that to your heart. I'm not trying to say that you should not do degrees, but a degree alone will not get you anywhere. You need to gain skills. And this is something very true in the computer science industry more than in anything else in any other industry. For example, if you become a lawyer and if you have experience for like 20 years, you are a really experienced lawyer. But if you become a computer science, like a fresh graduate from computer science degree, then after 5 years, whatever you have learned pretty much will be outdated. So if you don't have the mindset to grow your skills, then you will become outdated very soon. And even better, I mean, growing skills is good. Even better, it's important to be like good decision makers. There's a story, I'm assuming most of you already know. There's a story that it's a funny story. There was this ship, like a large cruise ship, that had some engine trouble, and nobody was able to figure it out. So they were hiring all these mechanical engineers to come and fix it, but nobody was able to do it. Then there was this one guy who came and he looked at the engine and he just tapped a few places using a hammer, and that fixed everything. And he gave a really so the bill of charge was really high, and the owner was asking, you didn't do anything, you just tapped the engine here and there, so why should I pay you this much? And what he said was, knowing where to tap was my skill, and that was my decision. So he made the right decision to tap at the right place. So making good decisions is more important, and growing your skills is more important. Degrees is just another way to say that this guy passes some form of education and he's good. But beyond that, don't just look at degrees as the trophies. This is an important point I want to mention because coming from Sri Lanka, there's this famous teaching in school that talks about a really idealistic person. So if I switch to my native language for a minute, this is about the Sirimat Magisaki story. So it talks about a really perfectionist, pretty much. And I want to say outright, that's a myth. Nobody exists like that. And don't try to model yourself after Sirimat. You can't. And instead of trying to be perfect, it's okay to fall down. So what you need is, when you fall down, you need good support to come back up. So learning from our son is one of the things that we found. It's okay to be not perfect. So as parents, what we're trying to do is to become the trampoline. Like when he falls down, so you act like the trampoline to get him back up. And if you act more like a hard concrete, saying that you fall down and now you're not perfect and he will never get up. So be that trampoline, and it's okay to be not perfect. And the other thing is, when everybody, no one is perfect, and now you try to compare yourself with others, and it's a tiring task when you compare yourself with somebody you think who is more successful than you. It immediately becomes overwhelming, and you feel like that you are not good at some stuff. So instead of comparing, what I would recommend is try to learn the paths other people have taken and how they have succeeded in their lives, and see if you can incorporate some of the ideas into your life. But directly comparing or trying to copy what others have done will not get you anywhere. And I want to share another story. This is coming from a non-technical side of me, that I do woodworking as a hobby. And one of the things I learned there is that how you handle mistakes is more important than being perfect. So when in woodworking, if you make a mistake, it's hard to fix, but how you fix it will affect the quality. So it's not about being perfect, it's about how you handle your mistakes. Another woodworking example. This is important and something I'm also trying to improve myself here. Like no one is perfect, so I'm also improving. Time is of essence. So I built a headboard. And this project started in September 2017, and the initial picture is like this. I brought all the raw materials, put them out. I had a plan in my head. I had a plan in a sketch of paper, and also I had a nice plan in some CAD software as well. So I knew I had everything ready to go, and I had the tools, and I had the skills as well. So 2017 September, this project started. By next month, it was 80% done. And the picture you're seeing is essentially a complete headboard, except it's not glued in place and it's not stained. But the results came, the final headboard came next year in May. So that 80% was done in 1 month, but the remaining 20% took me more than 9 months. There were reasons, there were excuses I can put in here, but what I want to emphasize here is you need to quantify your time and effort. Otherwise, this is how your projects will look like. You will optimize the back. And it's funny, this is also something that my brother would always tell me. If you are an artist, you don't focus entirely on drawing a perfect eye. Instead, you would try to focus drawing a complete face and then keep iterating to improve it. So quantify time and effort, see how long things will take, and also this 80-20 rule, which you might have heard of in the software industry. That's 80% of the things can be done in a 20% of time, and the remaining 20% will take the 80% of time, which is very true, not even in software industry. As you see in my woodworking project, if you don't quantify it correctly, things will drag along. The next one is ask for help. And I can share many stories, but I will share one that still haunts me in some ways. IPDPS is one of the hard to get in conferences. So we were making a submission at one point, a research paper. And it had a deadline anywhere on Earth. Anywhere on Earth means that it's, in my time zone, it was something like 8 in the morning. So I had the entire night to make the submission. But I couldn't make the submission because my program had a bug and we couldn't explain the results. So in some ways I was devastated. I was trying to get through it, but I was pretty much burnt out at that point. And then we were also visiting a friend's place, and I asked him, like, can you take a look at this, because I don't see anything. I'm not seeing the light. And then he came and he was able to figure something out. He gave me pointers, and it turned out right. And he helped me throughout the night to write this paper. And we put him as a co-author as well because of his contribution. But asking for help made it possible that we made the submission and get accepted. So this is something you might feel like when you ask for help, that maybe others will judge you or something like that. But it's much better to ask for help than trying to do some of the things on your own. But at the same time, if you ask too much without doing due diligence on your side, then there's a nice term for that. It's called ask whole. So don't be one of those. So put some effort on your side, but when you are stuck, it's better to ask for help than trying to solve everything on your own. So the takeaway of this slide is no one knows everything, but everyone knows something. So when you are stuck, ask for help. Zoom out. This happens to me quite often. So another area that I'm trying to improve myself. If you look at the picture, this dog is sniffing and he has his head too close to the ground. He's not seeing the bone up in the tree. So zoom out is essentially telling you not to do that. Just look up and look at the global picture. So my story there is, it was 1 a.m. I remember in 2016 or something. It was 1 a.m. I was in my Ph.D. research lab. I was trying to get through one of the bugs that was pretty much hindering my progress. And to me at the time, fixing that was the only way forward. And I was trying my best. I was trying to get through the night and see if I can finish it. But then it came to a point that it's going nowhere. And then I took a pause. I said, okay, fine. If this is something that I'm not going to fix, what can I do? Do I really need to fix this in order to make progress? So taking that step back gave me an opportunity to look at the problem in a different perspective. And then after a while, I realized fixing this bug is not necessary to make progress. That was one realization. And also I realized how to fix the bug. I was pretty much looking at the wrong place. So I had my head down for too long that I didn't see the bone up in the tree. So zoom out and see the global picture. And we are coming to an end in the roadmap. The last point I want to bring is stay humble, and I cannot emphasize this enough. I have worked with people who have resumes taller than myself. I have been so fortunate to be among them. I have had good teachers, and I have an exceptionally great parents who pretty much supported me all throughout. And they were, all of them at the same time, very humble and down-to-earth people. So some people might think that staying humble is a sign of weakness. But what I want to emphasize is staying humble doesn't mean that you should say yes to everything. I mean, you can be strict. You can you can be like leaders, but at the same time you can stay humble. Staying humble is giving an opportunity for other people to reach you, sharing your knowledge, so that you can lift somebody up. And so there are so many good qualities that you can put into this little stay humble slide. So try your best. Being humble is not a weakness. So with that, I would end the presentation with this last statement saying, life is a journey, make it a beautiful memory. So it's up to you how you make it a beautiful memory, and I hope some of the points that I mentioned here will help you in that. With that, I will end my presentation and open the floor for any questions. Thank you. While I wait, I will try to see if there are any questions on the comments. Also, feel free to ask any question from the technical side. I'll be happy to jump in to any of the projects that I have done. So, to give some idea, I have worked with high performance computing, parallel computing, big data systems, bioinformatics for quite a while, and then recently I am diving into deep learning and how to improve performance in deep learning. So any of the topics that I might be able to help or like give some insights, I'll be happy to do that. Also in any of the points during this slideshow. I have to say that it is interesting to do this one-way style of presentation, because now you present and any feedback from the audience is either a reaction or just a comment. So it's a different experience, and I'm trying to understand how it works at this point. So a couple of questions are coming in. I'll try to take them in the same order, and let's see. So Sanjay is asking, can I share one of my examples from where I interviewed for a position, and how did you prepare and how did you face the interview and secure the position at the end? Yeah, so going to the job interview market in US is tough, and for a while I didn't want to do that because I was more interested in doing research. But last year there was due to many reasons I decided, okay, it's time for me to explore these other side of the world from research. And preparing for interviews, a couple of things helped. Well, as I mentioned in one of the slides, being a researcher, I was able to gain a good amount of skills that the interviewers were looking at. And for me, the areas were parallel computing, high performance computing, or like big data systems. So I had the skills, but then just having those skills alone will not get you through an interview, because the interview process is very different. And for me, how I prepared was, this might be specific to US system, because most companies would follow this pattern where they give you some programming questions, problem solving skills like algorithms questions, then they would have some design questions, and they would just also do like some one-on-one chats, and then you, based on the results, you get through. So for the programming interview, or like the programming skills, what I did was to practice on LeetCode. LeetCode is a website where you can practice solving some of these algorithms problem. It was tiring in the beginning, and more than one time I was thinking, like, why do you do this? Because you already know this stuff. It's just like how you try to solve it, and some of the questions feel stupid in a way, because you're pretty sure you are not going to encounter a question like that in the real world. But then when you keep doing it for some time, then you realize there are things that actually you can learn, because even it doesn't matter if you have a PhD or not, but there are things that you can learn. So just give it some time, like 3 months. Do some question every day, 2-3 questions every day, and then that actually improves your skills. And then with that, do the same for design interviews, and then that will pretty much take you so far in interviews. I'm trying to see if I can see all the other questions, because right now I'm seeing only the top comments. So there's another question from Nishra. How do you get updates with the technology? Any daily practices or tips? That's a nice question, because it's overwhelming, to be honest, and you're trying to drink through a fire hose. Pretty much that's it. There's so much information and new stuff happening around you, and it's hard to digest. And one of the things I have done since 2018 or so is to customize my Google feed. And also, that's the news feed, but I have customized it so that I only see things related to my field, and I just skim over these things in the morning or like whenever I can. So that will keep you up to date. And also, being a researcher, I was used to keeping tabs on research papers in Google Scholar. So if you find something interesting, you put a you go to Scholar and say, like, if there's any other paper mentioning this, send me a notification. So those are the two things that I do. I follow Twitter, I follow LinkedIn, I follow people that are inspiring and making a great difference in this world, and I try to read every few often. Like I mentioned, no one is perfect, so I don't have a perfect answer for your question, but that's what I do. And please bear with me for a second because I still don't see all the comments. So I'm trying to see if I can get Facebook to show me the previous comments. It is showing me there are 10 comments, but I only see 4 of them. So this should be okay. So there's another question. Tell us how you went through the last year of your PhD, how you overcome any frustrations. That's a really fun question. I mean, to be honest, I didn't know what the last year would be at the time. So after 5 years, every year was like the last year, but it took me 6.5 years, I think. So the frustrations come through, and I have to give credit to my wife at this point because it was a hard journey. It was a fire. Dedicating yourself to pretty much 6 years is a really hard thing. And at the end, when you know that you want to graduate, but it doesn't keep happening, and it's frustrating. And to have that support from your wife, I really appreciate that. So the other things you can do is, I mean, just like my advisor said, you get frustrated when you focus so much on a goal or like a objective to think like, okay, this is a fruit that I need to somehow get, and that's when you become frustrated. But trying to keep your at times trying to keep your head down a little bit, even though I advise to zoom out time to time, to keep your head down and go through the journey. It's that's how you get through the PhD. It's no easy task, so that's why I mentioned endurance is the key. I mean, everybody, it's not just me, everyone who has gone through any path, it doesn't have to be a PhD. I mean, anyone who has started a business, they will all go through these stages of frustration, and having friends, having people to support you. So those are the times when you find the community around you useful and helpful. So, question on, could you elaborate a bit on your daily routine as a senior software engineer at Microsoft? So, I'd like to say that I have a routine, but it changes from time to time. My routine right now, I mean, we have a newborn at home, and so the routine is somewhat chaotic. So you try to wake up in the morning, and nowadays during this strange period you work from home. So weekdays are pretty standard, like you start your work around 9 and you end maybe 5 or 6, and sometimes if you have work you do whenever you get a chance. But other than that, I would say, like, try to enjoy as much time as you can with your family and friends. That'll help. So that's pretty much the routine right now. But I mean, but things change. So question, why you chose Microsoft? Any other particular reason? That's a good question. I mean, when I was interviewing, I had these thoughts like, okay, there were things that I was doing and there were things I was interested in. So if I were to get a question, I wanted to follow along those lines. So Microsoft, the team that I joined, is doing working on this deep learning and scaling up deep learning, which fit right in my alley. I mean, that's an area I wanted to work on. So that's pretty much the reason I chose Microsoft. It was the team that I interviewed for and the people in there. So one advice I can give you is, when you try to pick a team, or like when you try to pick any company or anything, just look at the people that you're going to work with and see their attitude towards life, or like towards projects. And being with good people makes a whole lot of a difference. So that's the reason I chose Microsoft and the team. Isuru is telling that I'm following you on Quora. Thank you for that. Quora is a great platform. I've used it for a while, and I would like to use it a little bit more, but time permitting, I read here and there and write here and there too. So thank you for that. Thank you, Imdad. I'm glad this was helpful. In fact, I learned a lot trying to do a live stream, and I always wondered how people on YouTube do these slides plus their video, but I never bothered to search because I didn't want to do one. But with this session, I learned a lot actually, so I'm grateful that I did this. Kapilan is asking a question. Could you please give some tips for the team management? So this might be an area that I also need to improve because being a researcher, the idea of a team dissolves into your few researchers you collaborate with. So I have learned from my managers. So one of the things is that one fundamental thing that I learned is that you need to make sure that everybody in your team feels welcome. So when I joined Berkeley Lab, I should share this story because I had a really great mentor at Berkeley Lab. His name is Aydin Buluk. He's a scientist there, and he was my advisor. And I learned so much from him that when it comes to a team, he gave due credit to people who work on projects, and he made everybody feel welcome. So those two things, I would say, are more important than following any things you learn from books like how to do team management. But to be honest, beyond that, to give you good advice on how to do team management, I would wait a few years before I can give good advice. Now that I'm realizing these comments are attached to the specific time, so that may be why that I don't see previous comments. So it's really a live stream of comments. But please, if I have missed any other question, please ask. Sanjay is asking a question on any advice to people who are interested in applying for graduate school. Yes, so if you plan to apply for graduate school, I would say plan a little ahead. So for me, it was I was a little bit late. I would say like my plan started when I was in the final year, and maybe even after graduation, because there are things you have to do in order to get in, and they take time. So maybe if you're in the second or third year in your undergrads, so plan ahead. So the kind of things you need to prepare for is you have to write a GRE and TOEFL if you're coming from outside. So those take time. So make a plan to prepare for those. And also, more than all those things, try to work on a project that gives you visibility. And for graduate school, if you're coming for research, so please try to engage in a project that will make you a publication or two, and focus on something that will give you visibility. Yeah. I think that's all the questions, and in the interest of time, I will end this session now. Thank SEF for giving me the opportunity to present here, and I hope you found it useful. Thank you.